let's go ahead and talk about exponential decay now. In the previous section, we had talked about exponential growth, where things grow at an exponential value. And now we're going to talk a little bit about how when things decay, or when they go down an exponential value. So this is what we did last section. We talked about when things grow at an exponential rate. So you have a repeated multiplier of 2. And so if you plug in 0, anything to the 0 power is going to be 1. And so this would be 2, and 2 squared is 4, and 2 cubed is 8, and 2 to the 4th power is going to be 16. And these will match up on the graph here, starting point and up and up and up, and you'll see it rises and it starts growing very, very quickly. Right? And then if we put in -1, we're going to get 1/2, and -2, we get 1/4, and so on and so on and so on as it approaches 0. So let's go ahead and let's take a look here, and we'll reset this page here. Sorry, do this. And we'll go ahead and we will talk about, instead of it being y equals 2 to the x, we're going to go ahead and we're going to change it so that it looks like a decay function here. So now what we have here is we have something that looks like y equals 1/2 to the x power. And so instead of this thing doubling, what's going to happen is we're going to have half of whatever is left over. Okay, so we're going to start off, okay, let's say we start off with 0. Well, that's going to mean x is going to be equal to 1. Okay, and then what's going to happen is after time period of, okay, so here's where it starts. After a time period of 1, right, I will have 1/2 of that. So then it's going to be here. Okay, and if after 2 time periods here, I'm going to end up with 1/4, because I'm going to have half of that. Okay, and then this will be 1/8 and 1/16. Okay, and as you'll see, it's going to just keep getting closer and closer to 0. Okay, so really what's happening here is it's going down, 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 and I'm just going to have half and half and half, and it's just going to get closer and closer and closer to 0 without actually ever touching 0, because I can always take half of something. As long as I have something, I can always take half of that. Okay, well now let's take a look and let's do this idea of the -1. Okay, well that's going to be where y is equal to 1/2 to the -1 power. Okay, well -1, the -1 power means we're going to flip this, right? We're going to a fraction, so we're going to do the reciprocal. So let's say 1/2 is next going to become 2 to the 1st power. So that's going to be here at 2. And then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to say, all right, well what happens if I change this, instead of it being -1, let's change it and let's make it -2. Okay, so now what I'm going to have is I'm going to flip this, and now this is going to become 2 squared. So that's going to be equal to 4. Okay, and really is what you should be able to see here is it's kind of the opposite. It's the reverse of what we were doing before when it was 2 to the x. Because really, if I had before, let's say I had 2, right, to the x power, well, we're doing the opposite. So it's kind of this, right? It's kind of like 2 to the -x. Okay, I'm flipping the whole thing. The whole thing is going to reverse itself. Because then what happens here is I can take the negative, and instead of this, I can say, okay, well, let's make that divide by 2. And we'll take that to the x power. Okay, and so it's sort of going to look backwards from our previous exponential growth, right? So if I go back in time, instead of having half, I'll have twice as much. And this thing will go up and up and up and up. Okay? And let's see, it kind of looks reverse of our previous, right? Our previous one of y is equal to 2 to the x. Okay? Here's this one, and I'm going to flip it, and it's backwards. Okay? So that's the idea of the of exponential decay. And remember, what you're doing is you're removing pieces, right? It's getting smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller as it gets down to 0, okay? And really, the graphing is going to be just the same as what we've done before on some of the previous ones. So I'm just going to have you kind of practice coming up with the different function rules, right? I'm going to give you some input-output tables, and we're going to go ahead and try some of the graphing as well. Don't forget to do a couple of the word problems for your exponential growth problems. And then you're also going to have a set of problems to do here as well. And those will be, go to the next page, and I'll give them to you now. want you to go ahead and complete these exercises over the weekend. And again, it's just going to be graphing, kind of identifying some graphs in these other ones. And then on Monday, we'll just go over some of the word problems that we were talking about. And we'll do a little bit more of exponential decay. So go ahead and do these over the weekend. Please make sure you check your answers. And if you get stuck or have any issues with technology, please email me and let me know. Okay, have a great weekend.